The sweeping white sand crescent of Bondi is one of Australia's most iconic beaches.
Really?
Yeah, really. Reliable waves draw surfers, while nearby hardy locals swim in the iceberg's ocean pool.
Welcome folks, I'm invincible all year long. I'm invincible, travel wide around the world. Guitar amplified.
What? Welcome to the GoVince19 Viral Tour, Part 2. Long before COVID-19, a well-known Australian film director by the name of Baz Luhrmann was quoted saying, "Sydney is rather like an arrogant lover. When it rains, it can deny you its love, and you can find it hard to relate to. It's not a place that's built to be rainy or cold, but when the sun comes out, it bats its eyelids. It's glamorous, beautiful, attractive, smart, and it's very hard to get away from its magnetic pull. Sydney, on a rainy day, is indeed like your average arrogant lover who won't answer your phone calls when in need of some extra affection, or deny entrance into its cold heart when in a foul mood. But Sydney, on a sunny day, is very much beautiful, glamorous, and one indeed cannot resist its magnetic pull. But a rainy day in Sydney, or any other city on the face of this planet, is a day off for a full-time busker such as myself. A rainy day is a time to catch a good movie, edit a video for YouTube or Instagram, or maybe even write a catchy tune or two in an attempt to drench the eternal thirst for the perpetual ambition of maybe one day scoring a hit song. Enjoy the fruits of fame that my hit song brought along with it, its fortunes and riches, to eventually retire into a life of ease and peace and live happily ever after. I suppose it was the reason I initially felt attracted to the idea of trying to become a musician, or maybe secondary. I can't really recall what landed the idea of music becoming my highest priority. But here I am, a traveling musician, traveling economy. Nana Mouskouri was once quoted saying, "One of the most wonderful memories in my life was when I sang at the Opera House in Sydney. I will never forget that. It was one of the most beautiful houses I have ever sung in my life." I never sang in the Opera House of Sydney, with its distinctive sail-like design, featuring a modern expressionist architectural composition, which was designed by Danish architecture Jørgen Utzon and completed by an Australian architectural team headed by Peter Hill, unfortunately. But I did busk across the harbour, opposite of this marvel of a building, over the water for months on end in 2019, long before COVID-19, when I joined the living in the land down under, where women glow and men thunder, plunder, and every so often chunder.
When I wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes, and something without warning, love, bears heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's all right with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be
A lovely day at the office. It's a treat to perform on a pitch, the spot where buskers perform their arts, or an parodic nickname we buskers use describing a pitch fondly as my office. In which case, my office has the Opera House as a consistent background on one side, and all them lovely day trippers disembarking or boarding a cruise ship, a multitude of tourists, and naturally the local Sydney inhabitants who usually have seen their fair share of buskers and street performers strolling by as bypassers on the other. Of course, the circular quay is not the only pitch for potential buskers frequenting the inner city of Sydney. In practice, there are dozens of them, such as the Darling Harbour, George Street, or Martin Place. But we decided to divide our creative efforts between what in our humble opinion were considered to be the main two pitches in the Sydney CBD area. The main one being the circular quay, i.e. the Sydney Opera House. The second main busking pitch, situated an odd kilometre from the circular quay harbour, and is considered to be the flagship pitch of the Sydney Central Business District, the famously notorious Pitt Street Mall. The Pitt Street Mall is notorious for the great influx of many great buskers who usually perform their arts with huge amplification systems in an effort to blow away spectators, listeners, and occasionally some shop owners too, whom oddly enough, as opposed to the European street art regulations, have almost no ground to stand upon to make or file a complaint concerning noise pollution or volume disturbances. For busking in Australia is considered a legitimate way of making a living, a business, a vending enterprise within all its rights, including permits, liability insurances, and what have you. The Pitt Street Mall busking pitch is in the mall itself. Buskers usually gather there early in the morning and under the rule of first come, first serve, make a performance schedule for the day, in which each busker has about an hour to perform from around the full hour to the next one. The ambience on the Pitt Street Mall busking pitch itself is generally very amiable and amicable, and the camaraderie amongst fellow buskers is quite tangible, with performing gear stacked and bundled up between a few benches, and probably, just like in a waiting room, respective buskers waiting their turn, at times for hours on end, will be gossiping like grandmothers over the latest discoveries, pitches, latest shows, gadgets, or just about each other. Until not so long ago, the Pitt Street Mall was known in many busking circles to be one of the more lucrative pitches on the Australian busking scene. Buskers with the right shops, great show, and adequate gear were able to collect up to 4-figure sums within an hour's show at times, mostly on weekends. So of course, I found myself waiting in this invisible line of buskers. And even though I possess some kind of musical talent, not to be conceited, I just didn't have the right equipment to blow away a crowd with a blasting wall of sound on the Pitt Street Mall. For I am but a traveling musician, traveling economy, flew in by plane, a 60-watt, 7.5 kilo amp packed in my suitcase in tow, which proved to be very hard to compete with for an audience traction, while my talented colleagues who played through 15-inch 150-watt amps, weighing at times up to 20 kilos or more, were easily in the position to do so. Their shows are more like mini stadium concerts rather than a busking show in the mall.
You got a fast car, is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision, leave tonight and live or die this way.
Apparently, I arrived in Australia with a less than adequate amplification system in Australian terms.
Sorry man, we were driving, jumping into your car, speed so fast I feel like I was drunk. See that's lay out before us, I felt my shirt on my shoulder.
Had to crank up my amp to a maximum just to show a little presence. It was brutal.
I could be someone, be someone, be someone.
So, after a few unsuccessful weeks at the Pitt Street Mall, we decided to seek refuge on a more frequent basis on the circular quay pitch.
Fly away, you gotta make a decision, leave tonight and live or die this way.
Because at the waterfront, my 7.5 kilo 60-watt amp somehow seemed to be more than sufficient for bypassers and listeners, which occasionally built up to be a nice crowd too. It was only less lucrative, much less. But hey, one has to sound great, not forced. Big money or F all.
Bravo! Thank you. This is Fast Car.
The name Sydney comes from Sydney Cove, which is where the English governor Arthur Phillip established the first settlement after arriving with the first fleet on 26th of January 1788. It's named after Thomas Townsend, the first Viscount Sydney, who at the time was the Home Secretary and the man responsible for the plan for convict colony in Australia. Glebe is a central district with a laid-back intellectual feel and atmospheric heritage buildings such as St. John's Anglican Church. Bookshops and galleries draw students from the nearby University of Sydney, while Saturday's Glebe markets attract deal hunters seeking vintage finds. Ethnic eateries, eclectic cafes and pubs define bustling Glebe Point Road. Mostly, we found ourselves sleeping, waking up, doing the laundry, cooking, and waiting for public transportation to commute back and forth between this luscious part of Sydney, which Glebe is, and where we magically found ourselves renting and residing in, and the busking pitches, which were about 45 minutes to an hour's commute by bus and train each direction, which in Sydney terms is considered to be around the corner. The average carless Sydney inhabitant commutes from home to work and back an average of 3 hours per day, sometimes even more. But Glebe was just a sweet treat, great for a stroll or a cup of coffee in a nice cozy cafe on our weekly day off, which happened to be on a Wednesday. Wednesday, the holy day. Every now and then, on Tuesday evenings, we'd arrive at the great decision, let's take a bus to... So, on one particular Wednesday morning, we took a bus from our laid-back hood, a 2-hour city bus ride through the length of half of Sydney to Bondi Beach. The world-famous Bondi Beach in Australia is a mecca for tourists around the world. It's one of those beaches with both stunning scenery and a vibrant beach culture. The Crescent Sand Beach is only 7 kilometers east of Sydney's central business district, which is why a lot of locals, as well as visitors from all over the world, flock there in the summer. The name Bondi comes from the Aboriginal word that means water breaking over rocks, or alternatively, noise of water breaking over rocks. I have never ever seen such waves breaking over the rocks in my life. So relentlessly, mercilessly, with so much force and foam. It seemed to come from an extraterrestrial ocean rather than the Pacific. Waves rise and crash from their peaks to a foamy wash below or over the rocks. And should one accidentally fall into the sea's clutches, the waves will take no prisoners, zero tolerance. They will have no mercy on your wretched, fragile, mortal human form. Mother Nature reigns supreme in this part of the world. Alternately, another great way to celebrate a day off in the Sydney area, by hopping on the Watson Bay ferry from the Circular Quay Wharf. Enjoy a short and pleasant sail before docking at Watson Bay Wharf. Once a fishing village, Watson Bay is now one of the must-see places for visitors to Sydney. Situated on a peninsula at the southern entrance to Sydney Harbour, Watson Bay offers panoramic views of the harbour, as well as coastal vistas on the ocean side. There are enough things to see and do here in the vicinity to fill in a few hours, maybe even a few days. Susie Kassem, American writer, poet, and philosopher, was quoted saying, "The journey of the sun and moon is predictable, but yours is art." On this journey, my art brought me to the Adelaide Fringe Festival, an artistic interlude in my Sydney adventures. This leg of the trip is the topic for the next episode of the GoVince19 viral tour. Hope you have enjoyed this video, second part of the GoVince19 viral tour. Part 3 will be coming up sooner than you might think. Don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel and smash notification buttons while you're at it. Have a good one. Ciao, ciao.